research skills. The skills that you already have and the skills that you're going to be developing while you're... So we're going to look at what research really involves, and by looking at 6 different facets of research. Levels of independence in research. How independently you can work, how much structure and guidance you need. There are many search engines, but there's only one research engine. What is it? Yes, brain, personality, or body, really all have to work together to conduct research. The question then is, what characterises the move from search to research?
Involves evaluation and interpretation.
Yes, involves rigorous evaluation. You know, so you're not just finding information and thinking, okay, this is useful. You're maybe testing it or probing it or comparing it to other sources. Excellent.
From the collected information, maybe.
So there's something about the exploration, yes, makes the move from search to research is increasing things like evaluation, probing further, comparing. And we've got the word there, increasing rigour. If you want to move from just thinking to critical thinking, then you're adding degrees of rigour and discernment. Problem solving also, which involves real world issues and competing potential solutions, requires similar thinking. So whether you call it researching or critical thinking or high level problem solving, there's very similar skills associated with those things. And depending on the discipline, some disciplines won't strongly use the word research necessarily. They might be talking a lot more about critical thinking, problem solving. This is an email I got from the tax office. This is going to help us work out what these skills are. Should I click on this phrase that was on the email, complete formula? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to list as many indicators of credibility as possible. The positive indicators are reasons why you believe this email. There's also negative indicators, reasons why you wouldn't believe it, why you think that they might be trying to get money from me. So you're going to have a list of positives and a list of negatives. No more heads down. We're going to ask you to stop after you've read out your 4 positives, and others will contribute, okay? And then we'll do the same with the negatives.
The logo of the Australian government, Australian taxation office is ato.gov.au.
Yes, under the copyright of the Australian.
There's no undisclosed recipient.
What did you just do? Especially the 2 minutes from when I said go to stop, but even in this conversation that occurred, get up with brainstorm.
Observing of data.
Yes, analysis data set. That evaluation of saying, hang on, that doesn't make sense. You know, we spend 2 minutes on it. You might do that in your mind in 5 or 10 seconds when you get these emails because you're used to them. But if it's something that's not familiar, sometimes we have to go through this process. But as it gets into literature and university, and you're doing your own research methodologies, then it gets more and more complex, and you spend not minutes or hours, but maybe days and weeks, because the process is similar, but you're adding cycles that add on rigour and discernment. Well, yeah, people talk to each other, didn't they? So what's the word we use for that? Yes, you were organising. You were in the active process of putting. That's important that you have a systematic way of organisation in your studies. That you don't just read and read, you might have 5 readings, and you just come back, you've got this mass of undifferentiated notes. To have a process saying, well, I'm looking for some specific things. I set you a very clear direction for that task. It was highly prescribed, highly structured, so you knew exactly what to do. But at university, often you won't have that exact clarity. You'll have to make a lot more decisions. You'll have to make decisions about what information to pull out. So you need to be organising. What we've found in terms of the skills associated with research, that is the things we do when we're researching. And remember we use this word facet, like a diamond. we're saying that there's 6 different sides to research, and you've shown all of those 6 sides. One is that we have to embark and clarify. It's not just about effort, but it's about barking up the right tree. It's about being clear. Go through the hard slog of evaluating others' information, like the tax office. Often your conclusions are much more sophisticated and complex, but they won't be very rigorous and sound if you haven't gone through all the embarking and clarifying, finding and generating, evaluating and reflecting, organising and managing. So you need to do that, all those at a high level to get good synthesis, so that you've got something worth communicating. You have these skills. So why you're at university? Well, to see those skills mature, richen, deepen. You'll be learning content, sure. But did you go through those steps in order when you did the tax office for the 2 minutes? It's all over the place. We spoke about 6 facets of research. The first side is that you have to embark and clarify. Second one, you would have to find information that's relevant to that or generate data, usually both. Have to evaluate others' information and your own and reflect on the process. Have to organise it, so you're the masters of the information. You manage teams, laboratories, your own time. You have to analyse all that with well-done organisation. It'll be somewhat easier. And synthesise things so they're packaged together. You have to communicate all that information and apply it. So the question is, why are we telling you these things when you're doing them automatically? Because what we find with students, and for academics, mind you, the same applies to students and academics. The development of your skills will happen best when you're aware of these 6 facets explicitly. So it's not just something you do in the background, but it's something that you bring forward in your mind to be aware. To make it explicit, when you apply your skills in harder contexts, so if you go from first year masters to second year masters, for example, sometimes it seems like you've gone backwards, but you haven't. What you're doing is encountering a fresh context, and you might need more structured guidance. So you should aim to become increasingly independent. Yep, so this is the progressive revisiting through months and years of your study, these 6 facets, cycling. How much structure and guidance do you need? If you're starting a PhD, are you quite able to work autonomously, independently, with enough rigour? Same in masters or undergraduate. How much structure and guidance? So that's about a degree of autonomy. And when lecturers are initiating, down the red end, things are hardly prescribed. You don't have much autonomy. There's very little choices. In the tax office, it's like that. Whereas your structure and guidance, you know exactly what to do, get in and do it, and hopefully do it at a really good job. But you might not apply enough rigour, so you mightn't necessarily be successful at that. The next level, orange, is where lecturers are still initiating, but it's bounded like a river has banks, and you've got the river can flow in different parts of the banks. Still pretty much know your direction of travel, but you've got more choice. The third one, yellow, is lecturers still initiating, but there's scaffolding things. You know when you're putting up a building, it's got scaffolds, and you can either repair buildings or put up new buildings. But if you've got the scaffolding in place, there's a whole lot of different buildings you can build, or buildings you can repair in it. So whilst the structures are there, you've got a fair bit of choice, but it's still to be begun by your lecturer. Now the next level up is completely different. This is where you initiate, you start. You're posing the questions, you're saying the hypothesis or the aim. Completely different. So the next, where you have choice. You've still got help from the academics, there's still got marking criteria, for example, there's still got expectations, but you're making a lot of the choices and driving it. The blue end is where you have full choice. You're determining according to the literature you've read, the experiences you've got, and your decisions, and you've got that full scope. Now beyond that, this is the next level of discipline making, where you're making contributions to the discipline, creating new knowledge, and that new knowledge is actually taken on by others. So they're actually quoting your work, they're using your processes, using your knowledge. It might be communities or other researchers. Now, the PhD students may, and some others may be able to move into that, but it's not in our control, it's what others do. Then finally, there's the level of discipline making, where you actually change the whole discipline. So there's a few examples of that. This is students researching with a high degree of structured guidance in a laboratory. They have prescribed methodologies around looking at bone structure. They're giving a lot of guidance from academics. So this would be very much the red, level 1. This is also a laboratory, but the students have a bit less structure. They've got, the academics are not given as tight procedures. They've got some choice about different things they'll draw from the slides, but there's still a lot of structure in there. Don't have too much choice. So it's the orange one. Now these students are first year human biology students, and they've actually gone out to the field. So they're posing their own questions. And from that generating hypotheses about life expectancies based on data gathered from tombstones. And but there's still market criteria. There's still some examples from the academic. But the students have posed the questions themselves. This is the research skill development framework that packages all that together. So what we just worked through then really is this framework. Particularly, we started, you showed me through the tag topics, you've got these 6 facets on the left. They're the 6 facets of research. And we just went through 5 degrees of autonomy from the highly prescribed PhD.